Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of We're Gonna Need a Bigger Show. And today we are kicking off our month-long celebration of all things Halloween and scary and whatnot. And I'm really excited today. Recently, I got to check out a film called Deathgasm, and we are dead excited to have Jason Lee Howden, the director, with us today. Jason, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, awesome. Thank you, Mike.
So yeah, man, I want to just kind of jump right into it. First and foremost, I absolutely adored the film. I thought, it was just. I know one of the trailers said this is the reason you go to the movies, and it absolutely is. I mean, it just everything about it was incredible.
Oh, cheers. Thank you so much. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Oh, it was fantastic. So to start off, I mean, I can probably guess a lot of your influences in the film, but in your early life, I mean, what was film like for you? I mean, did you were you a big horror fan growing up?
I honestly, from so early on, I can still remember like when I was like five or something, like seeing a vampire book and picking it up, and I don't know, it was always there. I can't even explain it, but yeah, I've always been attracted to horror movies and always, tried to. My parents are really conservative, so they tried to stop me like every time I was trying to get horror movies or watch them on TV or whatever. They were like, no. I remember the V TV series came out and that I
Oh,
wasn't able to
sure.
watch that. And but yeah, I think a big part of my upbringing was like in New Zealand. I after school I was like 9 years old, and I went into this department store, and they have the wall of TVs, like all those TV sets in like the department store.
Right.
Some employee had just chucked on Peter Jackson's Bad Taste, like just like 4 o'clock, like on an afternoon. And I was just like walking home from school, and I just went to check out Nintendo games, and then I saw this like just crazy shit happening on all these screens, and I was like, I just sat there and watched it to the end, and I was just trying to work out what was happening, and I
Sure.
think that's the moment I became traumatized for life, and but it was
That's
great,
funny.
and it was awesome seeing like the splatter stuff, and it was just so funny. But also, I think the big thing for me as a Kiwi was seeing like hearing New Zealand accents on the screen, because I hadn't seen anything from New Zealand until then. Like we just watched British or American like films and TV, so it was yeah, it was definitely like a big moment for me.
Sure. That's funny because I remember some of my early horror influence was going to the video store and seeing all these VHS tapes and seeing the VHS cover for Bad Taste and for Dead Alive and just being enamored with that. That's nuts. So I guess to talk a little bit about Deathgasm, I mean, were you also into metal growing up? And I mean, were you in bands like the kids in the movies?
Yeah, I mean, again, it was, I think, something my parents just hated, and I actually, I remember like walking past music shops when I was quite young and just seeing like Motley Crue, like Iron Maiden album covers, and just thinking, man, this must be like just some sinister, evil shit right there. Like, it must just sound like just Satan, like just having a rectal prolapse or something. And and then you pick up like Motley Crue, and it's like girls, girls, girls,
Right.
like. So it wasn't until I think when I was 13, I got one of my friends handed me like a dubbed tape of Cannibal Corpse, and that was like that sounded like the album covers looked like it was
Right.
just, yeah, just grunting, roaring, chugging sort of metal. And yeah, so I got into death metal. I was really big into death metal, like Morbid Angel, Deicide, Sepultura.
Uh-huh.
And then I went back and started listening to the classics like Iron Maiden, Black Sabbath, and yeah, it was just, I was hooked. It really spoke to me, at that time in my life. I had moved to this small town, and I was like, didn't really have any friends. So
Uh-huh.
I think having, the middle there, just it felt like someone else understood what I was going through. And that's something I wanted to get across in the movie as well.
Sure.
But yeah, I was in a few bands as well. Later on in the late '90s, they were terrible, but it was yeah, a lot of fun. Like the best time of my life, actually.
Sure. So going from there, then, I mean, when did that kind of reconcile with wanting to be in film in some capacity? I mean, did you know early on that you wanted to be a filmmaker, or was it, as you started to think about higher education?
Yeah, I mean, I to be honest, my first job out of high school was a as a video editor at a local TV station.
Okay.
So like I spent like my teenage years at a TV station, like filming like the what do they call them, like the demolition derby sort of things, like at the
Sure.
speedway, like and basketball games and all this other crazy stuff. And then I'd edit together music videos. So it was kind of like a dream job for someone that young, except it paid like shit. But it was still fun. So I guess when you look at it like that, I've kind of been in the film and TV industry for like shit 25 years now or something
Wow.
ridiculous. But yeah, it wasn't until in the 2000s I went to film school and really kind of tried to drive my career that way and actually try and get from like behind the camera to like actually in the director's chair. um and it was fun. It was like I made a few short films and a few music videos and just like made a lot of mistakes and learned a lot. And yeah, I'm really proud and privileged to have made a feature film finally.
Sure.
It's something that I know not a lot of New Zealand filmmakers are trying to get that first feature there, and I know it's not easy for in the United States as well. It takes a lot of hard work. So
Absolutely. So one of the really intriguing things to me when I was doing a little bit of reading up on you was you have this incredible VFX background. Um, did that help you, kind of, I mean, prepare yourself for, being a first time feature film director?
Yeah, I mean, in some ways, like it was. I got into VFX after I directed this short film on a green screen, and then I couldn't find anyone to do the visual effects. So I picked up some tutorials and just taught myself, and then I discovered that I could get some, make money from doing that.
Sure.
So yeah, I've been doing that for like I think 7 years now, and it's great. It's to be honest though, like it's very different. Like you're looking at like one shot or like sometimes just one frame and sometimes just like one pixel.
Sure.
So sometimes it can actually be quite an abstract process. And then when like I worked on stuff like films recently, like the last Hobbit movie and a few other things like the Wolverine movie as well. And
Sure.
you work on them out of context, and then you see the movie, and you're like, your shot just flies past in like a second, and you're like, wow.
Right.
Yeah, there's so a lot of making Deathgasm was about sort of having a break from being behind the computer and being out there with people and actors and learning how to direct actors and to move a camera around. And I mean, I think there's some because I'm a VFX compositor, so there probably is some like in terms of composition and in terms of that sort of stuff, there probably are some and also I did a lot of the VFX for Deathgasm as well, like the
Sure.
stuff that you don't really see, like painting out wires and all that sort of stuff. That
Right. So in getting into at Deathgasm itself, I mean, it was part of a filmmaking competition. I mean, did the idea for Deathgasm exist before the competition, or how did the two coincide?
Yeah, so we back in 2010, me and my mate Tim, who is a makeup artist, were just like, we weren't really doing anything. We're like, we should do this like sort of splatter movie, and it would be like kind of a trauma sort of thing, and just over the top, just blood and guts, and we'll call it Deathgasm Part like 66. Intesticidal, I think was the full title. It was like how like the Friday the 13th, they've got all the sequels. It was like
Sure.
we were starting from part 66. It was just this kind of grindhousey sort of thing that we wanted to do, and yeah, then later on when the film competition came along, I kind of revisited the idea and then had the idea to put like me and my mates when we were like metalheads, like well, hardcore metalheads in our teens. I'm still a metalhead, but take ourselves and make them into characters and just sort of like imagine if we had to save the world, how fucked would the world be? Like that was my whole thing behind it was like
Sure.
we're like total like not heroes at all. So and yeah, so that then I entered the competition with like that idea, and I had four other ideas. Like they were mainly kind of thriller, sort of more sort of serious ideas. And then yeah, Deathgasm was like the most ambitious idea as well. And but yeah, for me it was the most fun, and then that was the one they chose.
Wow, that's awesome.
And then we had to make it for next to nothing. But yeah, it was a great process, and I think there were like 500 other people that entered. So
Oh wow, wow, that's incredible.
yeah,
So speaking about funding and just having to make it for next to nothing, did the competition provide you with a budget, or did you have to crowdfund, or what was that process like for you?
yeah. So half the money came from a company, American company called Dark Sky.
Okay,
MPA. They distribute a lot of films as well, like House of the Devil, like they've done heaps. Starry Eyes, which came out recently.
sure, yeah,
But
absolutely.
yeah, so they put in half the money, and then the New Zealand Film Commission put in half the money. So basically, the New Zealand taxpayer funded the movie, which is awesome. They could have spent it on like healthcare or like starving kids or something, but fuck that.
Now, splatter movies, that's what we need to
Yeah,
be.
exactly. So and then yeah, they went from there. They also had their own producers in place, which was a bit interesting 'cause, we used to producing stuff ourselves, so
Sure.
yeah, we kind of had producers given to us, which we didn't really choose, and
What
which
was
was
that process hard? I mean, a lot of times,
it
you hear
was
horror
yeah,
stories.
it was definitely hard, and it's definitely given me a bit of insight into the industry and how
Sure.
things work at because I always just imagined it being me and my mates just doing it with the money, and I read about Sam Raimi and Evil
Right.
Dead, and that just and also Toby Hooper and Texas Chainsaw Massacre, just going out into the country with a bunch of mates and just trying to make a movie, and
Right.
but yeah, I think having those guys on board added a lot of like pressure. Like we had to finish the film in a year, and we only had to do it with that budget. We couldn't look for other financing, and
Oh wow.
yeah, so it was hard. But I think also like having to make a film, having those limitations kind of like forces you to just to go for it. And
Sure.
yeah, I mean, yeah, we'll see, what happens in the future, and
Sure.
yeah, what you know.
Right. No, no, I totally get what you're saying. So it kind of sounds like there were some autobiographical elements, at least in the characters. I wonder, like, what was casting like for the film? And, I mean, were you looking for people that were like, this was me, this was my friends, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit, like especially like someone like Zach. Like
Sure.
Zach was based on one of my mates from high school that was like he was like, like kind of better looking than the rest of us. He'd get all the girls, and he was kind of bigger than everyone else because he was held back a few years. So he was like kind of big and kind of dumb as well. And I wanted to have a character a bit like that. So James really kind of nailed that, and had that sort of just like brooding sort of like thing going on. Yeah, and with Brody, there was a lot of suggestions, and but we had an audition process, and Milo Cawthorn auditioned, and I thought he was just fantastic. He was my favorite from the start. He kind of had that he could do sort of like anxious and sort of a little bit quirky and awkward, but also he could do, he had good comic timing, which is really
Hmm.
important, and he could own it as a bit of a lead actor as well,
Sure.
and he could carry a movie, which I saw that straight away, and also he had been in a previous film, an American film called Blood Punch, so he'd been a lead in a indie horror film before, which meant that he could, he'd had that experience of taking it from A to B, and yeah, and Kimberly Crossman, she was from a soap opera called Shortland Street here in New Zealand. So she
Uh-huh.
was probably our most well-known actor, and she was actually living in LA at the time, and she read the script, really liked the script, and just really wanted to do it, but we didn't have the budget to bring her over, and she actually flew herself from
Oh wow.
LA to New Zealand and just got on board, and it was fantastic. She wasn't really into the gore or the all that sort of stuff, but she just totally just went threw herself into it, like did all her own stunts and just yeah,
Awesome.
was great. All the whole cast were just incredible. They were a lot of fun to work with, and actually, Milo and Kimberly were both Power Rangers as well, which was cool.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean that's one of the really great things. I mean, especially with an independent film, if your cast doesn't feel like they jive, then it just doesn't work. And the cast of this film really, I mean, it seemed like they had known each other for years, so that was really cool to watch. So, in kind of talking about the blood and the gore, we're huge fans of practical effects. I'm a effects artist myself.
Oh wow.
What was the kind of the push on your end to be like, okay, we have to do most of this practically.
I think it's just something that disappoints me about a lot of new films when I see a lot of they're good. I see a good film, but then they just chuck a bunch of CG stuff in it, and
Yeah.
I don't know, just feel sort of like ripped off. And I think CG works for like superhero movies and sci-fi movies because it's like it's all sort of slick and it's fine, but horror is just organic and it's meant to be kind of gruesome and gritty and dirty, and I think CG just really isn't really there. It feels with some CG gore it feels really weightless and kind of weird. And I mean I watched The Walking Dead, and I'm a big fan of what those guys do with the makeup, but
Uh-huh.
then they also have like a lot of CG kind of whenever someone gets slashed with a sword it's all CG, and it just feels like they're slashing a balloon or something. I don't know. It's like,
Right.
you know what I mean? Like if you were slashing a real zombie, you'd like just really hack at it, but they sort of lazily flick their arm up, and the zombie's head explodes into this like CG blood, and
And that CG blood is the worst feeling
oh,
ever. It's so bad.
it's so disappointing. And
Yeah.
yeah, and I think there's been a push. Me personally, for me, Deathgasm was about it was a love letter to the music that I loved when I was like younger, but also the movies I loved when I was younger. So it was just like a big sort of a package. Say early '90s, like what I was into in the early '90s, and I was watching like Dawn of the Dead, Evil Dead, Brain Dead.
Sure.
Return of the Living Dead, like Stuart Gordon movies, Trauma. I love Trauma, so I really wanted to have that sort of vibe there, and I thought it was really important, and so I push hard for that. Um,
So in doing that though, I mean it's an enormous undertaking, especially with the amount of practical effects that are in the film. I mean, was that hard given your schedule? I mean, did you have kind of a flexible schedule? I mean, what were some of the awards and challenges in doing practical?
yeah, the schedule was not flexible at all. We just had to keep
Sure.
going for it. So, one of the good things though was we had a contact at a company called Main Reactor,
Hmm.
and they did the effects and makeup for like the Evil Dead remake.
Sure. Yeah.
And some great stuff there, and they actually had just a storage container full of like body parts and appliance makeup and just all the stuff kind of left over, and they're like, well, you can just kind of grab some stuff, like
Oh,
just we're into recycling, we want to we want to help you guys out, and yeah, so that that was amazing. It really helped kind of like bring up the production values. And
Absolutely.
if you look closely, you'll probably notice a few props from the Evil Dead remake. Yeah, but
So, in talking about even the Evil Dead remake, I mean, one of the thing that they kept talking about, this is a return to practical effects, and that there was digital elements, but it was augmenting the actual real practical, and it seemed like that was the case here. I mean, obviously there are some VFX shots and some CGI shots, but they're you had a very light hand with those, and they really looked great.
yeah, yeah, and totally, it was more like we use practical as much as possible, and then we use digital to bridge that gap, and I think that's where it's best used. Like,
Sure.
if you yeah, and there were moments where like the rigs just we only had like a one take wonder with like a rig because they had to pump
Sure.
the blood up, and they're like, it's going to be 20 minutes for us to like repressurize the blood.
Oh
So we're
wow.
like,
Yeah. Yeah.
okay, we're going to have to just keep shooting some more stuff. And but yeah, I think definitely like it's a bit, CG definitely is useful, and like hoses as well. We had a few moments where the hose would like kind of pop up behind like a behind the gore rig or whatever, and
Sure.
yeah, painting that stuff out is pretty straightforward. So
Right. So I mean, it's a blast of a film. I mean, it's so much fun, and it really feels like it's been made for the midnight audience, for the cult film audience. What is the response been like, and what is the experience of like seeing it with audiences been like for you?
it's been really good for the most part. Like I mean, some people just really get it and are just
Sure.
really into it, and then some people it's just like they just it doesn't appeal to their sense of humor, or it doesn't appeal to them, and that's cool. It's definitely something that's kind of kind of niche, really.
Sure.
So, but I think the response has been far better than I ever expected. I never expected just all these. I mean, I'm in Paris right now. Just got back from like Austria, and before that, just traveling with the film, just having that
Right.
opportunity, like. I stayed at this one festival in Germany, and they told me that Peter Jackson was in the same festival in the same town, like for
Oh
bad
wow.
taste, like over 25 years ago.
Sure.
And he was
Bridging the
so
gap.
poor, he had to sleep on the festival organizer's couch. Like, and I'm like, what, really? And I've never heard that story before, and it just, actually, it's exciting because you feel like you're sort of, following in those footsteps, and I mean, even if not, it feels like you're doing doing being a part of something really cool. And
Sure.
I thought maybe it'll get into a few festivals, maybe it'll have DVDs in New Zealand. I never thought it would be in the States or anywhere, like but like yeah, Germany had an amazing reaction. Actually, I never foresaw it, but in Germany, you know how they do the 3D post conversion.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're doing that for Deathgasm on the
Oh, that's
Blu-ray.
so
So you
cool.
can go on Amazon and like it's even they've made their own cover art, like and it's called Deathgasm 3D. So you can go
Wow.
online and order Deathgasm 3D, and I'm just like, really?
That's incredible. That is
I
so
just
cool.
just imagine someone like because they have to cut out like they'd have to cut out all the dildos and
Right.
stuff like. And that was my job a few years ago doing post conversion. So yeah, I'm really excited to see how they handle it.
That's
I
awesome.
mean, it'll be probably look pretty weird, but like,
Right.
it's fun. It's and yeah, I mean, it varies from country to country, and there's always going to be a segment of the population that are just think, it's just totally not their thing, and but yeah, no, it's like everything really.
Sure. Yeah. So the ending, with without saying too much, kind of leaves it open a little bit. Is there any plans for a sequel anytime?
Yeah, I'd love to do a sequel. I'm currently outlining something, and I I think it's we did our thing with the first one, and what I want to do is take the characters and take the metal and also the supernatural demon stuff, and actually take it in a few different directions.
Sure.
So yeah, definitely keep the tone the same for the most part, but like maybe I thought the second one could be a bit darker, like be a bit grittier, and actually have a few scares, as well
Sure.
as still keeping the what people enjoyed about the first one, maybe taking some of the stuff that didn't work so well with the first one, and trying to like build on that, and also just making it gorier and even more metal, like yeah. And I've actually met some really good contacts, like, so I've been to like Brazil and other places, and got a few contacts for like some big international metal bands now that we might be able to get on board. So
Awesome.
obviously we'll still have some like really cool underground indie metal bands, but it'd be great to have like a couple more sort of big sort of superstar metal bands, just to really sort of like get people moshing in the cinemas.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, I'd totally love to do one. It's just a matter of just getting the money together, and yeah, hopefully people go out and see the movie in cinemas, the limited release starting October the 2nd, and VOD, and buy a Blu-ray or buy a T-shirt or whatever, and just help
Sure.
support the film, because like I guess it's all down to even if we get great reviews, what the people with the money just care about the bottom line, so
Absolutely.
we just need to
Yeah.
convince them that there's a market for it, really.
Sure. Well, to kind of finish up, I mean, what's next? Would a sequel be the next thing you'd want to do, or are there other avenues you want to pursue as a director before doing that?
Yeah, so I just finished like just been flying around and on trains and stuff, but I just
Sure.
finished like a script called Generator, which is like a sort of machinist meets Lovecraft, sort of a horror mindfuck movie. Yeah, I think it's pretty fun. It's definitely tonally like nothing like Deathgasm. So I'm working on a couple of other things, like a kind of a like fast-paced sort of violent action comedy thing, and yeah, I mean, I just wrote like a an outline for something like the other night, just like I was up at 2 a.m., just suddenly had this idea and just wrote this whole outline. And yeah, my wife, who actually co-produces with me, like just
Uh-huh.
says, just stop, stop, like coming up with new ideas. We should just make one of these. So, but yeah, I don't know. I just yeah, definitely some stuff in the pipeline. I just I'd love to make another film. Really, it's something
Sure.
that a lot of New Zealanders don't get to make one film, but I think I saw a statistic like, even I think only 30% of New Zealand filmmakers make more than one film.
Oh, wow.
So I'd love to be in that percentage, but
Absolutely.
otherwise, I mean, it's just been a fun ride, and I've enjoyed hanging out with filmmakers and and fans, and I had dinner with, it's gonna it's gonna feel like a total brag, but I had dinner with Joe Dante, the Gremlins director, the other
Oh,
night.
incredible.
I know, I was just shitting my pants the whole time, just trying not to fanboy out and just get him to sign like like autographs the entire time.
Sure.
So I mean, but I've just met so many like talented filmmakers, and like from the doing the festival circuit, and it's really humbling being able to feel like a peer to those people, and it's just been an
Sure.
incredible journey.
Well, Jason, I mean, we're really excited to see whatever you do next, and we can't wait to be able to spread the word about Deathgasm, and everybody can check it out October 2nd in limited theatrical release and VOD. Jason, thank you so much for your time today, and we can't wait to see what's next, man.
Awesome, thanks so much, Mike.
Appreciate it. Well, this has been another episode of We're Gonna Need a Bigger Show. I have been Mike D. Thank you all so much for listening, and we will see you next time. Goodbye.
We're gonna need a big show. We're gonna need a bigger